This is Tatooine Sons, the only fan podcast to name a canon Star Wars creature and to be endorsed by the writer and director of The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson, which just celebrated its sixth anniversary. And Rian Johnson celebrated his 50th birthday the next day.
Wow.
He's old. Even older than me. So it's been what?
I shared the podcast with a friend. They asked about it or whatever, and he told me later on that you have the perfect podcast voice now.
I've had other people mention that as well. With my regular work, where I'm in a podcast studio, actually having meetings that have absolutely nothing to do with the podcast. But welcome to the show. It's been a month or more. I don't remember. I know it was
a hot second.
It's been a while. We'll explain why in a little bit as to why and what you can expect going forward with Tatooine Sons. We're canceling the show. No, we are changing our release format for the next several months. We'll explain a little bit why, but we want to give you as much content as possible on the show that you're getting this week. So we are returning to our little bit longer format. So there's going to be lots of little segments and fun things. So listen to it in bits and pieces if that's what you'd like to do. But we're going to be talking about Dave Filoni and his amazing the announcement that he has been named Chief Creative Officer at Lucasfilm. We haven't had a chance to talk about that yet, so we're going to do that. We'll be talking about the 20th anniversary of Return of the King.
Yeah, well, it's actually the 20th, the 21st, and 22nd of all three movies this week.
So we're going to talk a little bit about The Lord of the Rings and what's coming next year in
War
that
of the
world.
Heron movie.
We'll talk about that. And then BB Nate really is excited. They talked me into going to see
finally
a movie that was a foreign language film with subtitles, and I was resistant, to say the least.
Stubborn.
And I walked away from that movie, or I drove away. We walked to the car.
I drove.
You drove.
You sat.
I walked to the car. You drove.
You sat away from the movie.
And on the way back from the movie, I asked this question, and we're going to talk about this: is Godzilla Minus One the secret to fixing what is wrong with Disney?
So put Godzilla in every Disney movie.
Yep, that's it.
I want Godzilla to eat Mickey Mouse. No, we'll talk about that here
Public
a little
domain,
bit.
I mean.
It's happening in 2024. You saw what they did with Winnie the Pooh. All right. That's all coming up next after this little segment where you get to learn about another podcast that is on the Christian Nerd HQ. Can't wait to share about that. This is Tatooine Sons. Hey nerds, this is David. You know me best from Tatooine Sons, but I want to introduce to you a new show coming to the Christian Nerd HQ. It's called The Bible Nerd Show. This is where a preacher, a teacher, and an average Joe all come together on a weekly basis to look at the blockbuster television series called The Chosen. Each week, we take a deeper look into it episode by episode as we uncover some of the best moments within the show, some of the biblical stories within it, and identify whether or not we agree with the choices that they made biblically. And we look at the historic, geographic, religious, and cultural context of each episode. It is a lot of fun. We can't wait for you to check it out. It comes out every Thursdays here on the Christian Nerd HQ. Make sure you check out the Bible Nerd Show.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody listen to that.
There's just a lot of weird stuff going on.
So just the Steamboat Willie version of
just the Steamboat Willie version of Mickey.
Which, you got all your Roosevelts
It's the best version of Mickey. I love Steamboat Willie.
Yeah, I forgot the song going through my head right now. So welcome to Tatooine Sons. We believe, welcome back to Tatooine Sons. Yeah. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of this generation, that there is a story. It is written on our souls, and that these myths speak to that story. And that is why we are talking about Star Wars again with some Dave Filoni stuff, which we're excited about that. We're talking about The Lord of the Rings, and we're talking about Godzilla, and
which is
Disney,
a first, I think.
And I don't think we've ever spoken about
I never
Godzilla.
thought we would talk about Godzilla, honestly, unless in a positive light, at least.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be talking about all that. We're excited to do that. So let's address the elephant in the room, which is why we haven't released an episode in forever. Sam, how are you doing?
I'm exhausted. Just got done with finals. We had a longer semester than everyone else, and we still go back before at the same time as everyone. So it's been a very long semester. Just finished up finals last week. It was probably, I'd say, the hardest semester so far. It was just a ton of work. It was first semester, senior year. So, there's projects and engineering that you have to do, and challenging professors.
Challenging professors is not even close to describing.
I won't go into detail, but that didn't help. So it's just been a lot. But I'm done. It's good. I actually had like a weekend to myself for the first time in the whole semester this last weekend. So that was really nice. But now I'm back to work, working full time. So,
that's your internship.
Don't get too much of a break. Yeah, at my internship. So, but I can't complain too much.
And then BB Nate, you're finishing up your senior year of high school. Mm-hmm. So you finished up your first semester of your senior year there, and you took some college stuff as well, and all of that. What was that experience like for you?
It was fine. It was simple, pretty easy. At least the one college class I had was simple. So
we were really glad that you were able to throw out that last that one test, one speech. Yeah, it was a speech class. You had to throw out one speech because it was such a low grade, but the rest of them helped you get your grade.
How low was that grade?
99.5.
And what did you make overall in the class?
A 102.43.
You couldn't have pulled it up to a 103?
I tried. It was over 103, and then it was pulled down. I don't know why.
Your average, you got I just keep saying exam, a speech grade that was less than a 103, even though it may have been 100, it's still less than a 103. So it's going to bring your average down.
Yeah. So I guess, 6 years of podcasting
helps
a little bit. You pass a speech class with it. What was your last speech about?
Mainly hope in media, because they needed something kind of a problem, and then solution was the format of persuasive speech.
Okay.
So I talked about how the news sucks. Yeah, because it's true, and how much it actually affects you, because it does.
It does. So turn off your if you're watching news, stop.
Yes,
just listen to podcasts. Our podcast.
Don't even,
but not news podcasts.
Just
not like global happenings news.
Our podcast.
Yes, our podcast is great. And then solutions, alternatives of media and all that stuff, and kind of just dove into that. So that was fun.
That's cool.
That's great. I was really proud of you for what you came up with that, as we talked about it before. All that is to say, the last semester was kicking the Suns' butt when it comes to school and everything else. Not to mention, I've done a shift in my job situation and moved into a great job with a great role and great opportunity, but it's taking up a lot more of my bandwidth as well, and my focus and my energy. And so we made a decision, and there was actually a conversation. I'm just going to go ahead and pull back the curtain. There was a conversation that happened in this, like, do we need to just acknowledge that a day is going to come when Tatooine Sons doesn't happen anymore? Because a day will happen when these two knuckleheads are going to grow up and have a family and don't want to talk about all this stuff with their dad every week or whenever we do it. So we had that conversation, and we talked about, do we want to keep doing this or not? And the general, everyone agreed unanimously, yeah, we do. We want to keep doing this. But we needed to do it on a schedule that fit our circumstances a little bit more effectively with that. So we've made the decision, at least through the end of the school year, so May of 2024, when Sam and Nate finish up their senior years respectively of their different educational plans, that we're going to just go to a once a month cadence for releasing these. And so that will give us a little bit more space to focus in on what we need to focus on the rest of the month, but also we have a chance to do this, and we will be releasing the longer version episodes that we used to do regularly as a result of that. And so we're going to talk about lots of things today. And so for you as a listener, here's the way I want you to I encourage you to listen to these episodes starting, with this one going forward. Understand that we are designing these episodes to be delivered to you in bite-sized segments, right? So, you've got some of this stuff that we do at the beginning, which is the chit-chatty stuff, but then we've got 3 main topics. And the idea is you don't have to listen to all 1 hour or whatever it takes for us to do an episode like this in one sitting. That's not what we anticipate you doing with it. You can listen to it in segments. You can listen to it in Nathan's segment as he's going to talk about Godzilla Minus One, and Sam as he's talking about Lord of the Rings, and me as I talk about Dave Filoni and Star Wars. We've also got some little bite-sized stuff in there. We're going to talk a little bit about the Wonka movie that came out. We're going to talk about The Boy and the Heron and help Nathan or help Sam understand it.
Yeah.
So those types of things. We're going to throw in the anything else segment at the end again. So you've got an opportunity to listen to it, in those 10, 15 minute little bites with that. And that's what we encourage you to do over the course of the month in between. And we would hope that not only do you get a chance to listen to it that way, but you get a chance to share it as well with other people and help them become a part of the Tatooine Sons family. We would love for them to do that and for you to do that. And we're excited. I'm excited about this format, and I'm excited to be sitting here talking with these guys and putting out an episode again. So we needed to get through finals though for Sam. So there's no way we could have done it before that. So, but I think that's going to do it. Let's stop talking about what we're talking about and let's start. Oh man,
it's been a while.
It has been a while. I blew it. So let's stop talking about what we're going to talk about. Let's start talking about what we're talking about.
There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
BB Nate.
Yes.
Tell us what we're talking about.
Well, we're going to be kind of going through our reactions to Godzilla Minus One. It's kind of interesting. We have a person here who's seen it once, a person here who's seen it twice, and then a person here who has seen it 3 times. So it's going to be interesting. We're going to go through that and kind of discuss the fact of how a Godzilla movie really cracked the code to what a good movie should be.
Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Yeah, I can fly.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
The people in this room, which one is A, wearing a spangly outfit, and B, not of use?
There's only one God, man, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
That man has no limits.
You both said that in unison.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's true.
How it worked out, I was at least, I think Sammy was a little bit too. When I first saw this trailer for this movie, I was pretty excited.
Tell them again, what movie is this?
This is Godzilla Minus One. Okay. You didn't see a trailer?
I never saw a trailer for this. The only way I heard about this movie was Nathan telling me.
So I saw the trailer and was like, oh, that looks like it couldn't be bad. And I've seen all the MonsterVerse movies and thought, oh, they're kind of meh. They're fine, but I've not much to them. There's not much substance. But this looked fun and all that, and it was from Japan, so I thought going back to its roots. So I was excited. Brought Sam into my excitement, and then tried to get Dad excited. He didn't. I
didn't get excited
because mainly it's Godzilla. You don't really expect a great movie when it's coming into Godzilla, and also it wasn't going to be dubbed, so it would be required subtitles because none of us here know Japanese.
Here's my position on subtitles in general, which is wrong. I don't go to movies to read. I go to movies to watch movies. And so I don't want to sit there and read. If I want to read, I'm going to read a book. I don't want to read a book and add a movie.
The fact that you can do both.
Just because you can do both doesn't mean you want to.
Okay, that's fair. But I was excited for it, and I was excited to see it in IMAX because Godzilla in IMAX would be awesome.
Okay.
Really cool. And it was always like kind of promoted as being in IMAX, which was great. And then I look on the weekend, the tickets are already out and everything, pre-sale tickets. I look for the opening weekend because we had nothing really to do that Saturday to see if I could go see it in IMAX, at least with Sam. And I find out they're not showing it in IMAX. And I didn't know why. They're putting Beyonce's movie in IMAX.
That's not a good move.
For no reason. So the day of
Wednesday.
It was a Wednesday. I had youth that night. No worship or anything. So I didn't have like an actual requirement to be there. Responsibility, I guess, is a better word. So I was just looking around on the AMC app, as I do every now and then, just seeing what showtimes were available for that this weekend in regular format, if it was going to be up here near us instead of driving an hour down, since it's going to be in regular format anyways. And I see there's an early access fan event in IMAX because it's the only time they can do it. So I convinced Sam that we're just going to go down that night and go see it.
I was like, I'll be fine on school. This
was during finals week, but I was excited. So
it was a couple weeks before.
We went to go see it in IMAX with a pretty good crowd.
Yeah, it was
a good amount of people there. A lot of big Godzilla fans, which isn't something I really think of.
You didn't know that was a subgenre of fan base.
I didn't think that was anything. But we sit down, Sammy not only have seen the 2014 Godzilla movie.
Yeah, that's the only
Godzilla movie he's watched, which is fine. It's a fine movie. But we get into it and watch the movie. Movie ends, and both of us are absolutely stunned,
floored
by how amazing that movie was. We didn't expect it. So we get home. I text you right as we get out. Because I'm driving, so I text you before I start driving, and I'm like, well, you missed out because that was a seriously great movie. And I'm unfathomable how well done it was for a Godzilla
You and I were talking
movie.
about that the whole drive back.
It's an hour-long drive. We were just talking about it the entire time. Mm-hmm. It was crazy. And so Friday, we have some people come over, and we convinced one of them to go see it.
That was Saturday.
It was Saturday.
They were here all afternoon. And
okay, it was a Saturday, and I wanted to see it again. Just normally, because I just wanted to see it. And Sammy said that he might want to see it again too. So I said, no matter what, if they come with us or not, we're going to see it. So one of them decided to come with us. And funny enough, they liked it too, because it's a good movie. And so I used that as leverage against you. Like, hey, so see, they liked the movie too in subtitles. It's really a good movie. It's very well done. And eventually you give in, like a week later at that point, you finally give in on a Saturday evening. It was
Friday night.
It was Friday night. Okay, I'm getting all my days mixed up. It was on Friday night. You finally give in to go see it, and just give your reactions from what the end when you walked out.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just like set my version of the story so you understand what's going on with me. Okay. It became very early on that this was going to be fun to keep saying I wasn't going to this movie. I didn't really care to see this movie. Yeah. Okay. So I don't care about Godzilla. I don't care to see a Japanese language film. Mm-hmm. I don't really care to read on screen. So all of those things together became, I'm not interested in this movie. And it didn't at one point it was like, I'm probably never going to see this movie. So the more that Nathan continues to tease me or ask me to see it or tell me that I'm doing it wrong, the more I'm going to dig in my heels on this and just poke the bear a little bit, because he would get frustrated because I would talk about reasons why I didn't want to see this movie and
because
subtitles.
It's a good movie
and all this other stuff. But eventually it was like, okay, I haven't been to a movie in like forever. And what was the last movie before that? Was it like the Marvels?
Hunger Games.
It was Hunger Games, which is a good movie.
It was a really good movie.
It was a really good movie. But I was like, there's nothing going on tonight. There's no Avalanche game. There's no Nuggets game. Let's, Mom was sick. She's been sick for like 4 or 5 days. And so I was like, let's just go to a movie. And I gave him some options and he picked this one.
Of course.
Thinking it would be the better option. Didn't think that The Boy and the Heron would be a good fit for me.
Not a good fit for you.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. But anyway, when we left the theater, I was like, okay, the reason that this movie works, and it didn't just work, it was fantastic. It was phenomenal. Was because it was a character and story driven movie. It just happened to be a Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's why this movie was the characters were so fleshed out and you care about them from the very opening minutes all the way through. There's so many different characters in this movie that you can immediately connect with on a emotional level, and you want to know what's going to happen to them. And the fact that Godzilla's coming and is doing all the stuff, and let's try not to spoil it because there's a bunch of people that are listening to this that I've never seen this movie.
Probably didn't even know it was a thing.
Right. And we don't have to spoil this movie.
No.
I mean, you know what a Godzilla movie is, and it feels like a Godzilla movie.
It
is
has
very
all
much
the
a
earmarks of
Godzilla
movie.
Absolutely. I will tell you right now, you have never cared about the characters and the story in a Godzilla movie like you're going to care about the characters in the story in this one.
I feel like that makes it a better, not just a better movie in general, but a better Godzilla movie.
Absolutely.
Because then when Godzilla is on screen, he does make an appearance. You're even more worried about it. You're not just like, yeah, let's see Godzilla break some stuff. You're actually worried about the characters.
It made Godzilla scary again.
Which is what he was always supposed to be.
It was scary. It was a scary monster movie because you were worried about the human characters in it, which was a necessary thing. And that actually brings us to what we really need to talk about
Well,
here.
yeah, because that's what I said when we were driving away, right? I said, this is the secret to fixing the MCU.
It is.
This is the secret to fixing sort of the disjointed elements within Star Wars and some of the stuff that's gone on with that, right? Is what it feels like the MCU has become is let's make a big superhero movie and character story can be secondary. And it wasn't that way originally in the MCU.
Iron Man, Captain America, all those like classic movies that you know and love from the heyday of the MCU were very character driven.
Character and story driven. You cared about the characters, you cared about the story, and that's why you cared about the MCU. And then it became, well, people are going to just care about the MCU because it's the MCU, and let's not worry about whether or not we've got good writing, good characters, good stories. And some things have hit within the the post Endgame version of the MCU, and some things have not done well, and I think that's why. And so it's not just Nate. It's not just about the MCU though. Right. We teased it as being is Godzilla Minus One the secret to fixing what's wrong with Disney. It's the secret to fixing what's wrong with Hollywood.
Right.
Yeah.
Hollywood has had a bad year. The box office has not done well. Movie after movie after movie that should have performed significantly greater.
Okay, the box office hasn't done well for some movies, but there have been at least three $1 billion movies this year.
Which ones?
Mario, which somehow hit over
really?
billion. I don't know.
That was one of the biggest movies of the year.
Barbie, and Oppenheimer in a few days because it's being released in Japan and it's also re-releasing next week. It's like 970 million. It's getting there soon enough. So we had three $1 billion movies, which is really good post-pandemic. I think that's probably one of the close to the first times this happened. Not even No Way Home, I think, didn't even hit $1 billion. So, and then Guardians of the Galaxy was huge as well. It was Disney's most profitable movie this year. So it's been a pretty good year overall for Hollywood itself.
I just think that there
pretty well done year.
Have been a lot of movies, like Dad was saying, that should have done much better than
I agree with that.
Did.
And the problem with all of that is the big movies of this year were character driven, which is an important thing. I mean, Oppenheimer obviously. Barbie, as much as I didn't like it, is character driven. Mario, all about Mario, and actually sets up some lore behind him somehow with his parents and him being in New York with his brother and all of that stuff. So very character driven. And even if we talk about Guardians, that was all about the Guardians.
We cared about those characters.
We cared about those characters, and it wasn't a big world-ending, galaxy-ending event. It was about the Guardians themselves. It was saving Rocket. It was about Star-Lord and his story. It was about their stories, not about the MCU stories. So that's why that was the most well-performing Marvel movie this year. And if we think about it, some of the Disney MCU shows have become a kind of a cameo a week thing. She-Hulk was a cameo of the week. Let's be honest, Daredevil was kind of the thing that kept a lot of people watching. And even then, they didn't handle that character right. So we see Loki coming in at the end of this year, completely shattering expectations, because guess what? It was about Loki's story and made him one of the, if not the most well-written character in the MCU of all time.
As an Iron Man fan, I will still stand by the fact that I think Loki has the best character arc in the MCU.
It's insane. And a lot of the good things that have come out of the MCU, just using that as a basis, have been character-driven. At post-Endgame, Shang-Chi, actually a really well-done, fun movie because it's about Shang-Chi. It was about his story, about his family, about who he was going to be. Great movie.
Moon Knight,
in some ways, it did some good things. Certain episodes, in other ways, it fell a little flat. But the best episode from Moon Knight was him going through his memories, learning how he became Moon Knight, how he got those disorders and all that stuff, him dealing with that. And then Mark Spector protecting, Steven something.
I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember the names.
Yeah.
But Hawkeye, that was a really good show because it was about Hawkeye and Kate Bishop. Really followed their stories.
And it set up another great character that we're going to be getting in just a couple of weeks.
Which brings me to my next point. Marvel Spotlight. Marvel has figured out that character-driven stories is really what it needs right now. And so they're bringing up this new label called Marvel Spotlight, which they have specifically said is a lower stakes, street-level, character-driven label. And people are like, I don't think Marvel understands, but this new label is probably going to be more well-performing than anything else they do because it's all about the characters. Echo looks fantastic because it's going to be the first villain story in the MCU. We're going to learn more about how she becomes a villain.
Are we sure they're going there with that?
The directors said.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's good.
He said first villain story. It's like
I'm actually glad they're going that way with it.
Right. It's what's needed. We need it. And so we're seeing Kingpin. We're seeing Daredevil. We're getting all these characters back, but we're learning more about Maya and Echo and how that all works out. So
let's apply this to stuff outside of the MCU specifically. Let's shift it over to our other and our first love. It's what the show was built off of, Star Wars, right? Okay. We have been on record as having truly enjoyed Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, it was good.
Right?
Good show.
Loved the story, loved the interactions with Vader. That was not a film or a series, that was universally liked. It was controversial, and a lot of people didn't like that show with it. We also really loved Ahsoka.
Ahsoka was great.
Why do you think that Ahsoka has been almost largely positively received, while Obi-Wan Kenobi was not as universally liked? Do you think it has to do with the stories themselves not being as like I felt like with Obi-Wan Kenobi, it became sort of let's just throw stories in here and figure out how to do it so we can get Vader in, so we can get lightsaber battles in. I could see that people making that criticism.
I can definitely see that too, and I think some of the criticisms were with certain characters like
Reva,
and even I heard some complaints about Leia. I thought
Leia was fantastic.
She was phenomenal.
Great. I liked it.
Reva, I can sort of see some of the complaints. Was she horrible? Did I completely dislike her character? No. Was she my favorite? Also no. I think things like that mixed with the sort of, I guess for lack of a better term, piecemealed story, where it does kind of feel like let's just throw Obi-Wan in a series of situations and see what happens. I can see that coming together. I think its saving grace for us is that it did what we're discussing here. It dove heavily into Obi-Wan's character after episode 3 and him dealing with all of that. And I think that was its saving grace for us. We look back not thinking about, oh, he went on this cool mission and stuff. We think back looking at all the introspection and things we've learned about Obi-Wan's character through that. So I think that's what's going
definitely. And Ahsoka tapped a lot into the nostalgia of Rebels and Clone Wars. It was a big deal. A lot of these characters felt like they grew up with Ahsoka. You don't really have that feeling with Kenobi. So that was difficult to capture.
Yeah.
But we can't forget about one of the most positively received Star Wars series this year with Andor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can't get more character driven. You can't get more character driven than Andor. It was all about Andor.
Yeah.
It was about Mon Mothma. It was really diving into those stories, their perspectives, their passions, what they needed to do, and how they got to where they were. And that was very important. You were invested. The one way out scene is one of the greatest scenes we've gotten from Star Wars this year. It was fantastic.
Was that this year?
That was this year. Mm-hmm.
Wow, it's been a long year.
It's been a long year. It's been a long year. But Andor was absolutely fantastic and showed that and widely positively received. A lot of people really love it. I think some even more than Ahsoka. Some people don't think it's Star Wars, like some people here. But it was still,
I might be poking the bear with that statement, but
but it was still a fantastic show that really dove into the characters, which was needed for Star Wars. It's necessary.
What about things like Pixar and Disney animation? You know, do you feel like it's gotten to the point where those are, well, let's, you know, like we were at the theater this weekend. What were we seeing? What did we see?
This must have been Godzilla, because you didn't see anything.
We
else.
saw another movie Sunday.
Saturday we saw Wonka.
Oh, Wonka. Yeah, we'll talk about that here in a little bit as well. So we were at Wonka, and they did a trailer for Inside Out 2.
Yeah.
Right? And then you have Wish. And you have, what was the other one that came out earlier this year that didn't do so well?
Turning
recently?
Red?
No. That one hasn't hit theater. There's one that just came out recently that didn't do so well in the box office. Maybe I'm thinking of Wish.
Strange World?
I think you're thinking of Wish.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Wish. So, okay, so the point I'm making is it feels like, okay, they've got a formula. Here's how to make a Disney animation movie. Here's how to make a Pixar movie. Just create a formula and a story that fits that formula versus creating a great story. And then does this fit in Pixar? Do we make a Pixar movie out? Do we make an animated movie out of this? What do we do? Do you feel like that? I'll let you guys kind of, as we close this part of the show up, this segment, Sam, answer this first, then Nathan. Is the idea behind what worked in Godzilla Minus One, is it truly the secret to fixing what's wrong with Disney and a lot of these films that have not been doing well?
Yeah, I think what studios need to do is shift their focus, and yeah, you can have your setting, which is fine. Settings are what sells movies at this point, honestly.
Right.
But that should be the setting, the backdrop to an amazing story. Create interesting characters with depth and a character arc that you care about, and then have the setting, the world, fill in the gaps around that. Like Dune. Dune is about Paul Atreides. It's all about Paul Atreides. But the world, the richness of the world, fills all that in, gives it a frame basically for you to watch that story, and that's what made Dune such an amazing movie.
Exactly, and I think that not only Disney, not only any movies, but Hollywood in general, with TV shows and with movies in general, need to learn that we really love characters. If we connect to them, your movie is going to do pretty well. Because if you write really cardboard characters like Eternals, we don't care about them. It doesn't perform well. Let's just be honest here. There was pretty close to the same amount of supporting characters in Godzilla as there was in Eternals. And I cared about every single one in Godzilla. And I cared about one in Eternals.
And they killed him.
And they killed him off. So that really shows that if you have some amazing writing and some real passion behind making sure these characters are well loved, because let's just be honest, Godzilla's budget was maybe 10, 12 million. Hasn't been reported fully, but we know it's less than 15. So, I mean, we're looking at all these movies right now with 200 million plus budgets with some shoddy CGI and some cardboard characters, and we're walking out with maybe 100 million in the box office, and you're wondering what's going on. And then Godzilla shows up with cracking 60 million worldwide so far on that type of budget, making more profit than Disney's most profitable movie this year.
Ratio wise,
that's insane. That's something that needs to be looked at. And so if they take note, I mean, come Oscars, come award season, and we see Godzilla dominating, which it has a chance.
Weirdly, Godzilla.
It's a weird year for them.
It's a weird year. It is, but Critics' Choice Awards has already nominated it in a lot of stuff, and some other companies.
So weird that a Godzilla movie is in that category now.
it's crazy. If it has a really great chance of winning Best International Feature. So it's showing that characters are important, and even for the other movies that we're kind of going to be talking about that we saw, they were really good because they were about the characters. It's important.
Cool. Well, I think it'd be interesting to see if this does influence some other things. I did say as we were driving away that this film needs to be. They need to create a course on this in film schools on this film and show how to make a blockbuster type monster story with great characters, great storylines, so that other film students can begin to understand how to do the same type of thing. So, all right, well, we're gonna shift here. Enter into a little bit of a world of imagination. Talk about the Wonka movie for just a couple of minutes because it was worth. It's worth.
This is not going to go the way you think.
All right, so we saw Wonka.
We did.
Quick reactions. I'll start with you, Sam. What did you think? Yeah, let's do 1 to 5 Wonka bars. Go.
Oh, that's good. 1 to 5.
I was going to say Silver Linings, but okay.
Either one works.
It's better.
I like Wonka bars. It makes more sense for people that maybe haven't seen it. Let's try to keep it as spoiler free as possible.
Yeah.
Don't say
3.5 to 4.
Wow.
3.5
to 4.
You got to pick. You can't divide the bar that much.
Yeah, 3.75. So, God bless you, Nathan.
Maybe.
Nope.
Oh, he's going to sneeze.
Nope.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. You good?
You got real loud there.
Yeah, I know. Okay. It was fun. Nothing like life-changing. I didn't walk out of it like Godzilla this year, where it just completely blew
a
my
changed man.
Right.
You walked out of Godzilla a changed man.
But... it wasn't as good as the original. I liked it better than the Johnny Depp one for sure.
Yeah,
that's a controversial opinion.
It was a cute little family Wonka movie.
Okay,
it was exactly what I was going for.
Nate,
I would say I'm going to go, but I want to hear your reactions first because I have my own thoughts.
I'd give it 3 out of 5.
Okay,
Wonka bars.
Okay,
it was fun.
Okay,
I think that anybody that loved the original movie should go see this. Go see this in theaters.
100%.
I think you will like it. I wouldn't be surprised if I ever saw it again if I enjoyed it even more the second time. With it, I think that the songs will grow on people over time.
Good songs.
I just don't think it has the magic of the Gene Wilder one.
No.
But I am fully cognizant of the likelihood that I am very nostalgic about the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with Gene Wilder. And so, I mean, I literally can remember. So here's my Gene Wilder Willy Wonka story.
Oh, you have a story. Okay.
That's a mini.
January 1978. Wow. 1978. Denver Broncos are in their first Super Bowl against the Dallas Cowboys. And the church that we were going to decided to get a projector that would allow the church that evening, the adults, to watch the Super Bowl together. And the kids had to go down into one of the kids' classrooms, and they had a projector for us, and we watched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
You weren't able to watch,
and I was angry because I wanted to watch the Broncos.
So that's your memory.
That's my first.
But then
memory.
You got to watch Willy Wonka.
I was scared to death of Willy Wonka.
Gene Wilder was terrifying.
3 years old, you pretty scared of Willy Wonka.
Tunnel scene's a little.
Tunnel
much.
scene was terrifying.
A little much, but I honestly. It's difficult to figure out a number to give this movie, but I'd say a 4.5
Wow.
out of 5. I really liked it. I really did. The songs were good. The humor really did hit a lot of the time. It was funny. It was well done. Wholesome.
Yeah.
it was very
in a
wholesome.
year of very existential movies, that's the best way to say it. It was a very wholesome, fun movie, which was needed in a lot of ways.
You can definitely feel good about going and taking your family to see this on Christmas if you're a Christmas movie person.
And again, it focused on the characters, which was a big thing we were mentioning. And it really gave a passion behind Wonka.
And I
agree.
It gave a passion behind all of the characters. And the ending was very well done. Yes. I really liked the ending because it really showed and gave a great stepping stone for what we see in Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka.
Yeah. And I was honestly, not that I was worried about it, but I was impressed with Timothée Chalamet's performance.
He did great.
He did a great job as Wonka, and the singing was good. There wasn't like that annoying auto-tune that you have.
No, that was what I was worried about.
Nowadays. The ADR was good. Like it was just a well-executed movie all around too, which I appreciate.
Awesome. Well, that's our opinions on Wonka. Let's talk a little bit about some very not Wonka.
Not at all Wonka. Yeah. So this week marks the 20th anniversary for Return of the King, 21st anniversary for Two Towers, and 22nd anniversary for Fellowship of the Ring, which is weird to think that whole series is as old as I am. They all were released this week. And so we're going to kind of take a little bit of a look back at some of the movies and talk about those, but we're also going to talk about an upcoming Lord of the Rings movie coming out next year. It's The War of the Rohirrim.
There's a new movie coming out next year? Oh, okay.
Be on your guard. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world.
All right, then, keep your secrets.
You're coming to us. Is as the footsteps of doom.
There are many magic rings in this world, Bilbo Baggins, and none of them should be used lightly.
Our favorite of the trilogy. Easy. I mean, it's probably going to be
Return of the King.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, you can't break these movies up. They're one movie.
Yeah.
But if you had to, it's easily Return of the King. There's no doubt about it.
No, I want you to go first. I know what mine is.
Because I know what yours is.
Mine's definitely Return of the King. There are very, very few movies that can regularly get me to cry, and that is one of them.
And for 30 minutes
What do you think is mine?
I think it's Two Towers.
Why would you say that?
I don't know. I feel like I've heard you say it's Two Towers before.
No, it's the original. It's a Fellowship of the Ring.
Really? Fellowship is good.
Because I didn't grow up on Tolkien, right? I grew up it's just to, pull back the curtain some more in our lives. I grew up in a world where, if they had witches and wizards and magic and all of that, you weren't going to go see those things, read those books, anything like that. And, I kept hearing about this Lord of the Rings movie that came out, 22 years ago, right? And kept hearing about people, Christians talking about it. And so I'm just going to be honest. I was like, what are these Christians doing? And so I went online and started searching and reading. And
forums.
Message boards.
That's all they had back then. Really?
Chat boards.
It was before social media for sure. No Facebook.
No Rotten Tomatoes.
Plugged in. Exactly. So I was sitting there reading and I was just like, became fascinated, and then I dug into Tolkien and learning about who Tolkien was. And when I read about who Tolkien was, I was unbelievably fascinated. And so I went to a 9:30 at night by myself. Went to the opening night with it and was just fascinated by the story. And the moment when Gandalf stands there on that bridge in Moria, the Mines of Moria, with the Balrog coming at him and says, "You shall not pass." I'm tearing up now because I remember feeling like that is such a spiritual moment, and I loved it. So the next year and the following year, I was there on opening night for the other two movies.
By yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
by yourself.
And then I got Mom to watch all of them director's cut.
And she was like, "Oh God."
Wait,
no,
like
she enjoyed them. Yeah, the full ones.
She's watched the extended cuts with us too. So
Yeah.
So
Nate, remind me, what was that movie that came out in recent years following Tolkien's life?
Tolkien.
It's called just Tolkien.
They're just Tolkien.
I need to rewatch that one.
it was a good movie. It was good. I don't know
got,
how accurate
what's the
it
name of the
was,
guy
but-
in it? He's playing Lex Luthor in DCU.
Nicholas
now.
Hoult?
Yep, he was Tolkien.
Yeah.
Was
That's
Tolkien.
right.
I don't know how accurate it is to his life, but it was a good movie.
Yeah, it was good. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about this new upcoming movie.
The War of the Rohirrim.
The War of the
right?
Rohirrim. All right. It's a prequel movie set 261 years, very specific, before the events in Two Towers. So
Two Towers.
yeah, before
Not
Two Towers
Fellowship?
specifically, because that whole story takes place over like a year or something like that.
Okay.
Of
They couldn't have
Frodo's
just
journey.
said Fellowship?
I don't know. But it stars Brian Cox. You know him. He was in the Bourne movies.
Yes.
I think.
Okay. He was the bad guy.
Oh,
He was the main bad guy.
He plays Helm Hammerhand in Legendary
That's a cool
King
name.
of Rohan.
Well, he voices him.
Right. This is all an anime, actually. And I'm not sure how Dad will feel about that, but there will be a piece of information here that I'm going to reveal on both of y'all that I think will get you.
It's
both
Dave
very
Filoni's writing
excited.
it. No.
No, not quite. And actually, Miranda Otto will reprise her role as Eowyn, as she's the narrator of the story. So I think
that's
kind of
cool.
cool. She's going to be like telling the story.
So is this tied? Hold on, I need to understand this. So is this like officially tied into the original trilogy?
I think so. I think it is a part of that, even though
The
it's
OT?
it's a prequel.
I think it is because the font's the same, and I know that doesn't say a lot, but
Right.
I mean,
well, they have to be careful about what they allow in the estate, and I'm pretty sure that this is
Allowed.
official, just because it's set in such a weird time period and it's such a small aspect of the story. I don't think it hurts anything.
What if we
now,
get Aragorn?
I think you guys will be excited by this. The director is Kenji Kimiyama.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You should know who that is. You know his work. He's done some DuckTales things. He's done some Ghost in the Shell.
Visions?
He also did The Ninth Jedi.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Sold.
So that bodes well. So knowing this is literally all the information I can find on this. There's a few other actors. We don't know any of them. We don't really know much more about the story. This is literally all we have, except that this Hammerhind is also the namesake for the stronghold Helm's Deep.
Oh,
So
okay.
we'll probably see the origin of that story too, where that whole comes from. But that is literally all the information we have on this movie, and I think it's supposed to come out sometime next year. So
It is,
based
late
on
next
that.
year.
Nathan, what
Yeah.
are your thoughts on them not only making a new movie for Lord of the Rings, but having it be such a weird time period and connected like the past and all that?
I wouldn't be surprised if we get some new information sometime this week. I'm going to be honest.
Really?
It's
with
Lord of the Rings week.
Yeah.
So maybe tomorrow for the 22nd anniversary of Fellowship, or maybe sometime later this week, because Max, HBO Max, or whatever you like to call it, is very much pushing the Lord of the Rings week right now. They have a whole collection. It's the big banner and all this stuff. So it's a big deal. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get some type of news, but also this is theatrical. This is not a straight to HBO Max.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a straight to DVD kind of movie. This is going into theaters. So we're getting a trailer sometime soon, I'm assuming. This has been in the works for quite some time.
A really long time.
So I wouldn't be surprised if before Dune Part 2, we have a trailer out, because that's the big Warner Brothers movie. This is going to be the big Warner Brothers movie at the end of the year. In December, they're going to probably release it around the same time. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get some of that. But
Have we gotten anything? We
haven't gotten it. We've only gotten the logo, the title, and then the background of the title.
It's releasing like a year from now, from what I understand.
Something like
December.
that. Yeah.
It is probably this week, because this is the week that all the other Lord of the Rings
Yeah, it
movies
says
release.
December 13th is what I'm seeing.
So
Makes sense.
do you guys think that this movie might suffer from the fact that it is a very different medium than all the previous films? And anime, despite what you may feel about it, it isn't a divisive medium. Some people swear it off and try to avoid it as much as possible. Some people are way too into it. Nate and I are kind of, I don't know, we'll watch if it's good. We like Visions and things. So what are your thoughts on that, Dad, especially being so like disconnected from all of that?
I think you bring up Visions, and I think that that's important because I think there's a lot of people like us who would not have even given anime a second thought until Star Wars released the first season of Visions or the first volume of it, and now they've released the second. And those shorts or whatever they're called, I don't know what they're called.
I think they're shorts.
Are so different from each other, and some of them have very classic sort of the cliche of what anime is.
Anime tropes, okay.
With like the twins feels very much
over the top.
Yeah, and then and also the one where the robot Obi-Wan or whatever, the robot like Toby-Wan, that's it. Yeah, to be one, right? Yeah, exactly. That one feels like sort of the goofy side of anime, and yet you have the Ninth Jedi, and that doesn't feel like
you
anime.
have. Roman.
That feels like battle tech and some of that stuff from when I was a kid.
Transformers,
that one is
Gen 1 Transformers.
Somewhat, yeah. So I do think that people have been exposed to anime that would not have been exposed, and it's the same. It's sort of very adjacent fandoms, right? The reason that we talk about the Lord of the Rings on this show as well as on Star Wars is because our love for all things nerdy, and those both fit into it. And so people that are big fans of Star Wars are often big fans of the Tolkien stuff and the Lord of the Rings, and they probably have seen some of the Visions stuff, and especially if you connect it to the Ninth Jedi, which is one of the best stories within that.
We're still hoping for a sequel.
I do. I hope they come out with an animated movie of it, telling more of it. I feel like we're just going to stop the show right now and go watch it. But anyway, I think that that's going to be really cool. I did just read as we were talking. I looked it up. This is definitely connected to Peter Jackson.
That's what I thought.
It's like his same studio or same like a production
it's
house.
Warner Brothers and all that stuff. So.
With that, and they've made it clear this isn't connected to anything with Amazon Prime's Rings of Power show.
Okay.
This is connected with the original Lord of the Rings.
This is an official anthology,
and that's why they're bringing back that character.
They mentioned that they wanted to do some of those things coming up here pretty soon in the Peter Jackson universe with Warner Brothers, because they're like, we have this IP, why aren't we using it? So they wanted to make some more stuff in it, and I think that we underestimate Lord of the Rings fans. A new Lord of the Rings movie in theaters will bring out the fans, because pretty much fans of Lord of the Rings are going to watch whatever they can if it's not Rings of Power. But genuinely, I think that this movie is going to bring in what it needs to bring in, and you're in an anime environment, so budget doesn't have to be as large, so they're going to make a good amount of profit off this movie most likely. And I think that anime gets a bad rap because of a lot of the weird stuff. Let's just be honest, there's a lot of weird stuff in anime.
Well, and it's also, you can't, it's for a lot of people, they don't understand, at least my generation doesn't understand that anime is not a cartoon, right? So the struggle with that is, you think cartoon, you think kiddie. It's the same problem that people have with Clone Wars. It's the same thing that people have with Rebels, Star Wars Rebels.
Mom still can't figure out that Invincible isn't for kids.
Oh yeah,
which is
Invincible is not for kids.
It's not for kids.
I think that people struggle with it because they see cartoon, they see animated, they see cartoon, and they don't understand that this is the case. But then you also have, there's some anime out there that is horribly like hypersexualized and those types of things, which I think does turn off a lot of people to anime 100%. As well with it. And that won't be the case with this. And so I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about it. I didn't even know about it until last week. I sent them a text or a message on our group chat. And I'm like, what is this I see?
I'm like, this was announced like 4 years ago.
How did I not know about this? And then, so I'm excited about it.
You brought up, Warner Brothers probably being like, we have this IP, let's use it.
Why aren't we using it? Mm-hmm.
And I do agree with that to an extent. But my concern is, are y'all worried about them possibly doing what they maybe some people consider they're doing with MCU or Star Wars, where there's sometimes too much of a good thing, too much content in a universe to where it just feels watered down and overfilled, and there's not that air of, for lack of a better term, reverence. It's like you got the holy trinity of the Lord of the Rings movies. They're perfect. Most people agree that they're just great. And
let's just be honest here. I mean, it's widely considered the best film trilogy of all time.
And I would probably, of any trilogy I've seen, they don't suffer. None of the movie. That's why Nate and I say it's just one movie, really. It feels like. So they haven't touched it very much. The only thing they've really done is Rings of Power, and that's disconnected. They've done a couple games.
Which was controversial, to say the least.
Right. They've done some games. Those were controversial, yet still disconnected. So do you think them starting to touch that universe, that IP, could be the start of something possibly bad?
Very much no.
Really?
Because this movie was announced like 4 years ago, and it's going to take them this long to make sure it's right. So don't think that's a problem. Also, you have to understand everything that Warner Brothers makes with Lord of the Rings, everything Amazon Prime makes with Lord of the Rings, everything goes through the Tolkien estate, and they have the final word. Because Netflix has pitched an Aragorn prequel series, and the Tolkien estate was like, heck, no, it's not happening.
It's concepts like that stress me out.
Right. And so
I don't want single character stories or them expanding on like characters like that from the series, because I feel like it could taint that whole thing.
Right. Netflix was trying to build a universe of when the rights were up in the air a couple years ago. They were trying to pitch a universe of like prequel series and all this stuff about Aragorn and Legolas and all that stuff. And Tolkien was just like, that's not happening. We don't want that. Nobody wants that. That's not what we're going to do. And so they have the final word, and they're very strict on what they do to make sure that it fits what Tolkien would have wanted, fits the books, fits the Silmarillion, whatever they want to do, it fits that. And so the fact that they have the final word means that the quality control will be fine. I don't think we have anything to worry about. And with how long it's taken for this one animated movie to be produced and in the theaters and everything, just shows that they're taking care with this movie and making sure that they don't offend anybody. Because Rings of Power, yes, was controversial for the wrong reasons, because it's a great show. It's genuine.
It was controversial because it was fabricated controversy,
right?
By the clickbait, toxic YouTube world. So the Tolkien estate approved Rings of Power. It did,
because
it's a fantastic
because they understand that it's what Lord of the Rings is. So the fact of the matter is, we need to understand that if they like it, then we probably will like it, because that's pretty much if somebody agrees to something that has power and say in this, like the Tolkien estate says that it's good, you should probably just assume that they know what they're talking about, because they do more than you, no matter how much you've spent trying to research stuff.
Yeah. I think, Dad, are you interested in something like this, even though it may be a bit different? I know that Visions probably makes you more open to a story like this. Would you be open to them doing more things like this in the future around the Lord of the Rings IP and Peter Jackson's universe?
Well, first of all, the thing that makes this exciting to me is not that there's a animated anime Lord of the Rings film coming out in December of 2024. What gets me excited about this is that it is being connected, or it is connected to the original trilogy, and they're bringing in, they're being conscious of that. So that to me, it's the same reason that I loved Rebels. It's the same reason I loved Clone Wars, and I think it's, the connectivity is what's exciting about that. would love to see, I don't think that the delivery style, being animated or not, should be the issue for fans. I think that I would love to see, I mentioned it a little bit ago, I'd love to see some Star Wars anime, right? You hit the theaters, full length animated stuff, hit theaters again. So I think there's lots of opportunities there. I'm excited about it. Can't wait to see what comes from it. Would love to see a trailer.
Yeah, soon enough, I'm sure.
So let's talk about some other anime.
Might as well.
And Nathan's going to explain The Boy and the Heron to Sam. He's going to try again. So we'll do that next.
At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge.
All right, Nate.
Okay, so
help me out, bro.
Before I explain everything, rating on easy 1 to 5 herons or Wada Wadas. Let's do Wada Wadas.
Those are cute.
I have no idea what they're talking about.
There's these little spirit bob things that are the souls of babies before they're born, and they inhale and then they float up.
And just feel free to go spoilers on this, because I have a feeling most people listening to this podcast aren't going to go watch The Boy.
And if they are, then they've already seen it. So.
Was it executed phenomenally? Was it beautiful as any Studio Ghibli movie is? 100%. Did I get it? No. I've watched 3 Studio Ghibli movies so far, and I haven't gotten any of them. I guess if we're rating it on a scale of comparing it to the other Studio Ghibli movies that I've seen, and if it compares... Yeah, I mean, I guess 4 or 5. It did what it was going for perfectly. Enjoyment, 3. It felt a little slow, and I didn't quite get the story. But it was still well done. It was interesting to kind of pick out the voice cameos with all the big names that they had sprinkled about the movie. But as for the story and stuff, I didn't get it. Didn't get it.
Okay,
Nate, what about you?
What would I give it? Yeah, I give it a 4.5. I get the slow aspect of it, which I don't mind slow, but pacing was just off. But that's not a problem. That's kind of what you expect from this type of movie. They approach movies very differently in Japan than they do in Western media, which is a reason why the story was confusing, because they considered stories very different down there, especially Studio Ghibli and especially the director. So
isn't it Studio Ghibli, by the way?
It's Ghibli.
It's Ghibli.
Okay.
I don't know. I may be wrong.
Not GIF or GIF.
Nobody's told me. I'm going to go with Ghibli. It sounds better than Ghibli. It sounds like something you take out of a turkey.
Yeah, we might get crucified about it, but we're good. But the story, while it takes a lot of brain power to kind of decipher what it's supposed to be, it's beautiful. It's great. It's a great story. It's a story.
Just walk through what the application or the concept behind the story is without getting into details on the story. What is it trying to communicate?
It's about grief. It's about processing grief. That's mainly it. I mean, in the logline and everything, the main basis of this movie is the child. Forget Mahito. There we go. I'm surprised I remember that. Loses his mother during the air raids of World War II. A horrible, horrible thing to even imagine going through. And so this kid moves to a new city and all that with his father and everything, and is trying to process this grief of losing his mother. And he struggles like anyone would. So he kind of goes to this dream world eventually of where it helps him continuously go through the stages of grief, leading to, of course, acceptance, the final stage of grief. And that moment where he finally accepts it is weird, crazy, and a little bit scary, but very well done and intense, and you really feel it, and then it carries itself through the rest of the ending of the movie. It's a very well done story, but it's very difficult to understand what it's trying to do when you're in a world filled with giant parakeets and floating white blobs that are apparently the souls of babies before they're born, and seagulls eat those babies for nourishment, and Willem Dafoe's a bloodied up old dying pelican seagull telling Mahito life lessons. It's weird.
It was really weird.
It's weird. There's no doubt about it.
It sounded beautiful, and then you started telling me all that, and I'm like, no, that's not beautiful.
The
that's
setting is weird.
The
Animation is beautiful. Apparently, the story is beautiful.
The story was amazing.
So I'm going to throw this in here, and this is just me having heard you describe it now this way. And I know we talked about it when you guys watched it, Nathan, and you already sort of told me a lot of this, but it's hitting me differently right now. For somebody who is going through their first Christmas season after their mother's passing, what would this movie do? If I grasped the story,
grasped the concept,
what would this movie do for someone like that?
It would. It would be relatable. I feel like more than anything, because it is an internal battle. It is a battle that no one sees, which is mainly what this movie deals with. It is his own dream that he deals with personally and has to go through and figure out how to battle each of those things and go through these stages. And finally, you know, anger, depression, denial, all of these things are things that he goes through. And eventually he figures out that he can't change any of that. And no matter how much he tries, there is a better way to deal with this through accepting it. And the ending was really well done. Mark Hamill's character, while he's not in it much, granted, was a great character. And that was also confusing. He was a confusing character too. But everything about, and they just hit you with some things like the power of the dream world being a stone was confusing. That, like, when I first watched it, I'm like, why is a giant stone the thing that's dictating like all the power of the dream world? And then you go back and remember that everything kind of started why he was on bed rest was because he was just so far done with people and everything and done with his new
processed his
and
grief.
all of this. So he just hit himself in the head with a rock, blood gushing out, and just put his hat back on and kept walking.
Because he wanted to get out of school.
It was difficult. And then everything from that point on leads to some weird stuff, granted, but helps him finally process that full power of grief through that point in a very weird way. But Robert Pattinson's great. There's no denying
I couldn't even tell it was him.
Couldn't tell it was him. It was like somebody told him,
That's cool.
just do voice acting, and he was like, okay, I'm going to do it.
That's awesome. No, I think it's cool that, you know, you can, you know, we tend to pretty much agree on things, and for you two to have these different opinions about this movie, and still, you know, Nate, I mean, Sam, I think that you thought you appreciated the movie even if you didn't understand it. But I love, Nate, how you're able to pull in the imagery and the symbolism and understand that story. And it's, you know, I will tell you, as someone, like I said, that's going through processing things still, that the world moves on when you lose a parent like this. The world has to move on.
What happens in this world.
You know, the world goes about, you know, everyone was in my world, everyone in my world, our world, was unbelievably caring and unbelievably supportive. But eventually they have to go about living their lives, and so do you, right? But the hurt and the grief and the loss, it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
You just have to figure out how to deal with it, right? And I think that's what I'm taking from this. So very cool. Let's talk a little Star Wars. I know we pepper Star Wars into everything we talk about, but let's talk a little bit of Star Wars, because I'm excited about an announcement that happened just a couple of weeks ago, where Dave Filoni has finally been named the chief creative officer at Lucasfilm. So the cries for "In Filoni we trust" have finally been heard. What does this mean for the future of Star Wars?
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
It's like it's weird to think about the fact that you guys met Dave Filoni even before we started this podcast. When we were at Star Wars Celebration in 2017.
Without his hat, too.
Without his hat. It's one of my favorite pictures that we've ever gotten of you guys with it. And we didn't even acknowledge this, but we are now in our 7th. Can you believe that? We are in our 7th year.
Wow.
So we've been doing this for 6 years.
We've had our 6th anniversary would have been December 1st.
Goodness.
Of doing this show. You guys were 12 and 16, and now you're 22 and 18.
Wow.
When we started this show.
That's crazy.
With it. So happy anniversary, guys.
Happy anniversary.
Happy weird put it that way.
It's exciting. So let's talk a little bit about this situation. So let's frame the conversation. We have had conversations with got to be careful now. I'm tired and we haven't talked on the show forever. So I'm going to try to word this the right way. Careful. There are people that are in the know.
Oh, good way to put it.
From various different circles that we have had conversations with in the past 6 years. So that not on the show. We're not talking about these conversations having happened on the show. We're just talking about conversations that we've had with people because of this show and the relationships that have come from it that have made it clear that the frustration within Lucasfilm throughout the sequel trilogy was a lack of cohesiveness, which I think that we can all, looking back and having some space, can all agree is exactly what hurt the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
With it. In fact, this week, just a few days ago, Adam Driver was doing an interview. I don't know if it was for the Ferrari movie or whatever, but they brought it
unhinged after this Ferrari movie. I've seen some things. He's been crazy.
He's just saying whatever he wants.
Saying whatever he wants.
Well, he said flat out, he's like, when they filmed The Force Awakens, there was no redemption arc in store for Kylo Ren. There was really no plan for what they were going to do with that character. That's not how you write a trilogy. At least George Lucas, who tweaked and changed and turned things upside down and everything with the original trilogy and did some weird things in the prequels, at least he had a plan for everything. He knew what his overarching story was going to be with that. That was not the case with the sequel trilogies. And there's been a lot of frustration within Lucasfilm over it. So what's your reaction? I'll start with you, Nate, and then we'll go to you, Sam. What's your reaction to this news that Dave Filoni, on the heels of his triumph, which was the Ahsoka series, being named chief creative officer at Lucasfilm?
Makes sense. It kind of just feels like he's been the chief creative officer for a while now, but yes, it feels like a formality. It's what they need. I mean, you look at the MCU and you see a bit of problems right now, but I think that's a bit of problems because Kevin Feige, however you say it, Feige, I don't know what but
Feige, that's what we did one episode. We did a whole episode in our second year where we decided that it was the right way to pronounce his name.
But whatever it is, I feel like he hasn't been involved in every single thing because it's just been so much. He can't be involved in everything. And then he himself has said, we're going to start doing quality over quantity because he needs to focus on every single project now, which makes sense. So now that Dave Filoni is able to do what Kevin Feige did so well for so long in what we need for Star Wars right now, it's encouraging. It's what we need. And so we're able to hopefully get some movies coming up here pretty soon. Maybe, who knows? We're getting some shows. I'm not sure. We have some shows coming out in the next year, which is great. But finally, hopefully keeping the quality over quantity mindset that Star Wars has been for a while. We need the quality. We don't need the quantity. We're fine. We've lived a long time without consistent Star Wars content. So
Sam, I think we would all agree that this is good for Star Wars.
I do have
horrible
a couple
reservations,
not necessarily concerns.
Okay,
reservations.
Yeah, just some things I want to make sure is accounted for, and I think you kind of touched on them, Nate. I don't want there to end up being such a volume of content that Dave isn't able to keep a rein on it all and keep, be able to influence it all. And I also hope that this doesn't keep Dave from kind of doing his own projects like he's been doing, Ahsoka and
Mando
and Tales of the Jedi and things like that were his little his love,
his baby,
his little projects. And like, didn't he say that Tales of the Jedi was started from like he wrote on the back of a napkin on a flight?
On all the airplane flights for Mando?
I want him to be able to keep doing stuff like that, and I'm worried that with this new position, he won't have that luxury. He won't have that capability anymore, and I don't want him to sacrifice that. But all of that saying is, I don't think that's going to be an immediate concern. I don't think we're going to immediately see a drop in quality or him stopping his projects. But I am worried that down the line they may get into a rhythm of things. They start taking on too much, and then we start to see kind of what's happened with the MCU. There's an overabundance of content, and we start to see a quantity over quality situation. But say that doesn't happen. I do think Dave is the right man for this job. I mean, there's a reason why there's been such a cry in the fandom lately for In Filoni We Trust, because basically everything he touches is gold. Because he knows Star Wars. He knows what a good story is. He basically, for lack of a better term, studied under Lucas for a while.
Yeah, right. for the entire run of the Clone Wars up until season 6 was over.
So he knows not only how to write a good Star Wars story, but what Star Wars truly is. He knows that we've said this before, it's for children, it's for kids, and he will keep that mindset. But he knows how to write an interconnected story with deep characters. Look at Clone Wars, look at Rebels. I mean,
Ahsoka.
And look at Ahsoka. These are character-driven stories, like we said, that just happen to be set in Star Wars.
Right.
And I think that with Dave at the helm of all these things, he's not only going to continue that trend, but he's going to connect it all in a way that Star Wars so desperately needs. And we're starting to see that now in the shows and stuff. So,
do you think that this shows that the primary focus of Star Wars for the foreseeable future is going to be the Mandoverse and, Dave's movie? Or do you think that he's providing that same real, leadership and direction to James Mangold's, Dawn of the Jedi stuff? And I can't remember the name of the director, but the Daisy Ridley, New Jedi Order driven stuff. Do you think that he's, we've speculated on our Ahsoka episode, or at least I have. I don't know if I was on a couple other shows talking about this, so I may have just primarily speculated there, but that I think that everything that happened in the end of Ahsoka with the Mortis stuff is going to tie both into the Dawn of the Jedi and the New Jedi Order stuff, and we're going to see amazing connections with Mortis and all of that. Do you think that's kind of where this is going, or do you feel like it's more of a step back, just giving a Star Wars feel to things and making sure the stories are connected that way?
I don't think he'll be immensely involved in every project, because he'll be stretched thin, and that's a concern we've had. But I do think that he's going to make sure that everything makes sense, make sure everything feels like Star Wars, it connects right, is well done, quality over quantity again. And I think that he'll make sure that everything just feels good, just feels like Star Wars, because making sure that we have the characters that we love, and even new characters that we would eventually love, is important, because he knows how to make characters from scratch that we really come to appreciate. Obvious in many cases. So I think that he'll oversee everything. I don't think he'll be immensely involved in every project.
Yeah, I think I'm going to just basically echo what Nathan's saying. I think he's going to focus primarily on finishing up the Mandoverse thing and his movie and that whole side of things. And once that's kind of concluded its main story, I don't think it'll end entirely, but once that's kind of reached its stopping point, he will start to focus more on other things. I think that they already have a general plan in place for the Dawn of the Jedi and the Rey stuff. I think they have an idea for an overall story and points that they want to weave into everything. So I don't think there's that much work to be done by Filoni for that interconnectivity. So I don't think he needs to be directly involved in that right now. But once this main run of things is over, I think we'll see him starting to branch out and become more of a overview role in a way, just kind of making sure everything fits in its box, not necessarily being so tied into everything directly.
What type of impact do you think that this has on Kathleen Kennedy and her role in Star Wars?
I think I mean, to be honest, I don't even really know what her job was before. That's just on me. I didn't really know what she did. So maybe nothing for me because I didn't know what she was doing. But, you know, I think she'll be more of the business side of things. I think she'll just be kind of looking at, hey, what do we need numbers wise, things like that. I think she'll just be kind of focused on the administrative side of things. And then, you know, she'll be the business side of Star Wars while Filoni's like the creative side, and they have to meet somewhere in the middle. Like Dave's like, I want to do these crazy things, and Kathleen's probably like, well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and they find a way to meet in the middle and find what's best for the story and for the company, because, you know, they're in the business of making money, so they have to make money. I think that's kind of the relationship we're going to see here in the end. I may be way off because I still am not entirely sure what she does, but in my mind, that makes the most sense.
I'd agree. I think that Kathleen's going to follow the business side of things while letting Dave Filoni kind of figure out the creative side. I think that's pretty much what they've agreed upon, and I don't see why it should be any other way, because she knows how to run a business with movies. She's been in it for 4 years now, so she understands how to run movies and run that business, and she's done pretty well for Star Wars, all things considered. So I think she'll finish the business side, but definitely Dave's following the creative side.
Let's bring the circle complete from what we started. Our first main segment was about how what we experienced watching Godzilla Minus One was the secret to fixing Hollywood and Disney, you know, all of these things, MCU and all this other stuff. Do you think that this is a sign, the bringing in of Dave to as chief creative officer? I think that title is important, right? Do you think bringing him in to do this actually is a very, very good sign that Star Wars is going to focus in on story and character first versus just churning out more Star Wars content in order to bring in dollars to the Disney machine?
I do. I think that I don't think Lucas, you've mentioned this. I think Lucasfilm knows that there's been some less than stellar box office performance or reception of some
box office has been fine. The films were great,
but
minus Solo.
I mean? You know, some
you're right.
Fan reception and things like that. I think they know that. I think that they can read the room and they can see what people want, and they need to ride that wave. They need to go with the current, and the current is, hey, you know, maybe everybody and across the board is like, hey, maybe we're getting a little bit too much of stuff, or maybe, hey, this kind of just feels a bit watered down, or like Nathan said, cardboard. I think Lucasfilm realizes that, and they're like, okay, we need to take a step back and reevaluate and fix some things. Who's the guy to best do that? And they know it's Dave, because they've been able to watch the reactions of pretty much everything Dave's touched, and the reactions are almost unanimously positive in every way, overwhelmingly positive. So I think they can read the signs, and they're just preemptively trying to fix some things, and this is the best move for that.
Definitely, it's the best move to keep making sure, because he loves Star Wars first, and that's the big thing. You don't want somebody in charge that doesn't like the project that they're working on, because they just won't put any passion behind it, and he loves Star Wars. He always has. So it's very important. I think that he'll really make sure the characters are well written, make sure that everything has quality, and make sure it feels like Star Wars.
Yeah. I think one thing that Dave has on a lot of people that they could bring into this is Dave isn't necessarily interested in telling his story.
Right.
He's interested in telling the best Star Wars story.
Exactly.
And I think that's what a lot of the sequel trilogy suffered with, between JJ and Ryan.
And then Trevorrow, and then back to JJ.
JJ wanted to tell his story. Ryan wanted to tell his story, and then we went back to JJ.
Trevorrow wanted to tell his story. Right. It got canned, and so JJ had it. Yeah.
So it went back, and JJ didn't try to continue telling the story. He went back to trying to tell his story, and I think that's why it felt so disjointed, and it didn't quite mesh together as well as we would have liked. Dave isn't going to do that. Dave wants to tell the best Star Wars story for the best characters that he can, and I think that is the thing above all that's going to that bodes well for the future of Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, I as we talk about Dave, it got me thinking a little bit about him, and I think it makes for a good dad moment.
I am your father.
So if you've heard Dave's story and how he got into working with George Lucas on the Clone Wars, he was working on The Last Airbender, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and he got a phone call and he was invited to come and talk with them, and he thought it was a joke. That's how how not in the Star Wars world he was, but he honed his craft. He did the best. He loved what he did with Avatar: The Last Airbender. Put out a great story, great characters, great product, and that earned him the right to sit at the same table as George Lucas and have those conversations. And he thought he bombed that, the interview. And then the next thing you know, he's working with him and he ends up going for 6 years. And then, you see this moment where the Clone Wars is canceled and Disney takes over Star Wars, and it sort of looks like what's going to happen with Dave, and they don't let him finish the Clone Wars, which there are people in the creative world that would be very upset about not getting that opportunity.
Absolutely.
and push back in a negative way against that. Like, I'm going to take my ball and go home type mindset. He didn't do that. He crafted another unbelievable, in my opinion, even better series in Star Wars Rebels, tied into what he did with the Clone Wars.
He kind of still brought his ball,
but earned that right. Yeah. And then they move away from animation to the Mandalorian and live action, and instead of being like, "There's no future for me now in this," he ends up working directly with with Jon Favreau and asking Jon to help mentor him and how to do live action, and learns how to do that. And then it culminates with the Ahsoka series, which is phenomenal, phenomenal. And now that he's been patient, now you see this growth, you see him learning, you see him being patient. All of those things in the way that Dave has handled himself over the last. How long has it been since the Clone Wars originally came out? It's been the very first movie, like 12 years ago, something
Probably
like that.
more than that. I don't even
More
know.
than that. That's 15 years ago.
I don't know, man.
It might have been. You were 3, probably.
I think so.
Nate, 15 years, and now look at him. He's chief creative officer at Lucasfilm.
That's some
and he is now literally moved to that role of telling the stories that he and George sat, I'm sure, storyboarding the ideas. And I think that that's a great lesson for us to learn. So just, allow yourself time to grow, continue to learn, be patient, and good things will happen. So that's it for a dad moment. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
Anything else?
Yeah, so Marvel released the new Echo trailer.
I just watched it a little bit earlier today.
Oh, you did?
Really?
Finally.
Oh,
and
you didn't see it when you sent it to me?
I thought I sent it to the group. I must not have.
I didn't pay attention to it.
Oh.
So I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, they're like, viewer discretion advised.
Like, this is MA.
Set your profile to adult. You know?
Like they really want to drive that home because it is not your typical MCU fare.
This is the first time an MCU project has gone MA or R. It's the first time.
It's like John Wick.
An official MCU project.
Right.
It looks like John Wick with the stuff they're doing with it.
Looks crazy.
I'm okay with it. It looks good. Knowing it's a villain makes it kind of even more exciting because you're not like it's not being glorified. She's a bad.
So January 5th. What day of the week is that? Do we know? That's
no clue.
I thought it was January 9th.
No, it's the 5th.
It's the 5th.
So January 5th is going to be a Friday.
Hey, and they're dropping all 5 episodes, which is weird. First, that it's 5 episodes, and second, that they're dropping all 5.
So let's. Are we going to go out of our way to try to watch it the whole weekend? Like finish it out?
Yeah,
over the
if we
weekend?
can, I'll be.
It's January 9th.
Oh, is it 9th? Okay.
But definitely
in school. I'll figure it out.
I will 100% be there because of Daredevil. That's all I'm there for. But moving on to some DC stuff. I know we haven't talked about much DC on this podcast, but the DCU has had some updates recently. Nicholas Hoult is playing Lex Luthor in Superman Legacy.
You excited about that?
Very. I think he'll do a great job.
Yeah.
Better than Jesse Eisenberg, but Jesse Eisenberg was a weird situation. David Gordon Sweat is really getting into the role of Superman.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the pictures, it's crazy. He said he wants to look like the Tim Sale Superman, which if you haven't seen him, look him up. He's a unit. He's big.
He's a unit.
He's huge. So
that's pretty cool.
Which is exciting. And also Matt Reeves' Arkham Asylum TV series is not going to be set in the Batman universe. It's going to be set in the DCU, because James Gunn has said that Matt Reeves will be working on some DCU projects and some of the Batman projects. So he'll be working on both. So, awesome. Which is great. I'm excited about it. Looks like the DCU is going in a good direction. I think that people are.
Now we just got to get through this.
We just got to get
week with
Aquaman on Friday. Aquaman. For us. It's just we need to get it out of the way. It's
you're right.
We'll see.
Aquababy
Superman is a unit.
Yeah. It's insane.
Like built.
So
look at that.
Jeez. All right. So when it comes to Star Wars, we talked about this going into last year, into this year, current year, 2023, that it was going to be the year of Star Wars. But there is confirmed 3 live action. They came out this weekend, confirming that there are 3 live action series that will be releasing in 2024. We also expect Tales of the Jedi season 2 in 2024. We
give us Vision season 3.
Well, that's not. I don't think that's.
I know, but give it to us, please.
But we're getting Bad Batch this final season. Of that. We're getting Andor season 2 in live action. We're getting the Acolyte, so we're going High Republic with that, and Skeleton Crew, which I'm much more excited about Skeleton Crew than anything, because it's got Jude Law in it, and somebody looks like Jude Law apparently. So I think that'll pretty much do it for this episode. It was good talking all these things with you guys,
and an hour and a half later,
talking with you guys about it. All you listeners out there, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
We really do appreciate it. I hope that you'll enjoy these longer episodes that come out less frequently, while these two focus in on myself as well, but these two specifically focus in on the most important thing in their lives right now, which is their education and getting those things done. And that's the way that it works, right? So make sure you share this with your circle. We'd love for you to get the word out to them. If you want to and you can, ratings and reviews do make a big difference. So we would love for you to do that. With it. We appreciate it. I think that's going to pretty much do it for this episode. Anything else you guys want to say?
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you, always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.